morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a brand new venture for the Alpha Live channel. It's the Formula 3 Cup, and it's brought to you live from Silverstone National. It's round 2 that's going to be coming up in just a moment. Race 1 was yesterday, and here's a look at some of the drivers. Stefano Lini, yesterday, he won the first race of the day, and Shane Kelly as well. He span in qualifying, but managed to gain a few more positions. George Lyons failed to finish with a gearbox issue after crashing with the wall, and Dominic Paul as well, third place finish for the new driver in the season. Then you've got John Corbett, started on pole position but finished 6th. Again, another newcomer to the championship. And Tony Bishop, 4th after a great running. And James Winslow, invitational class, finished 2nd in his first appearance. But let's take a lap around this 1.6 mile circuit, the Silverstone National layout. We start with Cops Corner, flat out, nearly in good conditions. I suspect not today because it's slightly greasy out there. We then head down the main, or the back straight, in towards Maggots and Beckett. Again, very fast through here, heavy on the brakes as you head round now. A good clean exit is key out of here, as the slipstream could potentially ruin your day or make it worthwhile as you head down the very long straight. 6 corners, of course, in total, and last race here in 2017, so not fresh in some of the minds. Then we come in towards Brooklands. Again, a very fast entry in towards this one. Again, a dab of brakes as you head around the Luffield section. This is where we saw Stefano get his fantastic overtake around the outside of that corner. Now back down the start-finish straight through Woodcote, flat out through here to cross the line at this 1.6 mile circuit. A fantastic circuit in the heart of the UK, and a brilliant running that we saw in race 1 today. Race 2 will be coming up in just a moment, and down in the paddock and down in the grid section, we've got our man with the roaming cam. It's Bryn Lucas.
Yeah, thanks very much. I am down here, and it was nice and gloriously sunny and things. Now the cloud has started to come, and I think later on for the third race of the weekend, the second race in this particular championship, is going to be quite a wet one. But where we are right now, it is dry, and I've got a lot of the cars around here. 7, as you mentioned, a bit of an issue in Germany getting the engines over here, so there are only 7 cars on this grid, but 7 beautiful cars. We're going to have a fantastic race coming your way. And I'm here right now with the winner from yesterday, as you were saying, Stefano Lini. He won yesterday, starts from the front of the grid here today as well. Stefano, yesterday a really, really strong performance from you, but you've got quite a lot of great drivers around you, particularly to your right-hand side with James.
Yeah, it's I've always done well in the wet, and my issue today is the dry pace between the 2 cars isn't too dissimilar, and he's great at starting, so I've got no reservations that he will probably overtake me at the start. So then I've got the work to do for the first 2 or 3 laps to try and get ahead. But I think if I can get a relatively good start, I'm hoping I can come up with a win. But it'll be nice to have a bit of a race with James, because he's got a lot of experience. He's raced for the last sort of 20 years. So, and John's pretty good in the wet also, and he's right behind me. So I think it'll be an interesting race.
I was going to say, you've got not only James to your right and John behind you, but, you know, of course, he's been a mentor for John as well. So John is going to take a lot of lessons from what James is doing.
Yeah, we were watching the pacing in the test day, and they were getting quicker and quicker. So I think we know what they've got in the locker. I don't think we've quite shown our hand yet. So I think it'd be interesting to see how this race pans out. But I'm hoping we can come away with a win if I keep my head down.
Good luck.
Thanks, mate.
There's Stefano there. Let's go for a little bit of a wander as well. These cars are absolutely fantastic, aren't they? They're beautiful beasts. So only 7 of them out on track, but that should still be a decent bit of racing for us. As we head a little bit further back here to John Corbett, we were just talking to Stefano there a little bit about John behind him, and the fact he's got James to his right. Now, James is the mentor, really, the driver coach to John. So let's dive on in very quickly. John, we've just been talking to Stefano about who he's got around him, and he eyed you up and said that he's got you behind, and with James to his right-hand side as well. Of course, James has been your coach, really, as well. So how many lessons, or how have you learned over the last, the last day, really, from James, and what you can do out here today?
Sorry, mate, I really didn't catch that, except, yeah, James will be working with him as my coach and stuff. So, yeah, we kind of, you know, dry lines, wet lines out here, perfecting everything. You know, Stefano's obviously a pretty rapid fellow, so if I can hang off the back of his coattails, I'd be happy. And, yeah, no incidents today.
That would be nice. Starting 3rd, so you're hoping that 3rd at least is where you finish?
Yeah, look, 3rd would be nice, maybe a bit better. I think James's car is lacking a little bit of pace, so I may be able to get him through Cops.
Right, okay. So you've identified cops. Good luck. We'll hopefully catch up with you later. Identifying cops then as a possibility as I trip over things here in the paddock area. Let's go to one more, and that's Shane Kelly. Let's go over to Shane and have a quick word with him. So even though John didn't know the question I asked, he generally got the gist of it, which was pretty good. I'm going to go over to Shane, though. Let's dive in and speak to Shane. Wasn't a great result for Shane yesterday, but Shane is one of these drivers. We know he did so well. 2016 came second in the championship, 1 point behind George Lyne, who's actually at the back of the grid for this one. Shane, just talking you up really about your credentials, about, you know, second in the championship 2016. You've come very close to it over the course of the years, and it's a smaller grid at the moment, but you must be looking at the front there thinking you've got some tough guys to pass.
Yeah, I think the new car structure has brought some amazing cars into it, and so it's really extracting the best out of our package, what we have, and thinking about our class points, I think, at the moment. And you know, the qualifying yesterday didn't go so well, so you know, to come back with a second from yesterday is great. We were really happy with our dry pace on Friday, so it's good to start with a dry race this morning, and maybe whatever throws at us this afternoon.
Well, I was going to say, it seems like it's probably going to be highly likely it's going to be a wet race later on. How difficult are these cars to control in the wet conditions? I know you changed the tyres and everything, but how much harder are they to drive?
Well, we've got a couple of scenarios now with a free wet tyre, so we've got a Michelin and a Pirelli to deal with. So we gambled yesterday on the wet quali and with slicks and resulting into a spin, but I think it was worth the gamble. I think we just made two wrong decisions and then put us at the back of the grid. But yeah, it is different. Depends what tyre you're running, depends what compound you're running, but it does change the dynamic. That's when you sort of see how good the aero was on these cars.
Good luck for the race.
Thank you.
Great stuff there. So 3 insights on 3 of the drivers, 7 out on track, as I say, and it's going to be getting cracking very soon. I can see that the marshals are getting ready to wave them out onto track. Well, they'll start doing their formation lap and getting all the heat in the tyres, and that is all important here at Silverstone. And the track has been bed in a bit. A fair bit of rubber been laid down so far today, so hopefully track conditions will be pretty good for this race. And as we go into the one a bit later on, it's going to be completely different with what is likely to be a wet weather setup. Chaz and Anthony, this one's going to be quite exciting, and luckily you get to talk it through.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Bryn. A great insight there, a great chat to some of the drivers that we've got there. And as you were saying, we have got a third member of the commentary team with us today. It's none other than Chaz Draycott. Chaz, how are we?
I'm very good, thank you. Very good indeed, thank you, Anthony. Really looking forward to this today. Formula 3 cars are always exciting. It's always close racing. Usually in open wheel racing, people take a bit of a negative look at it and they go, oh, but they can't race closely and they can't get contact with each other and survive it. But Formula 3 cars, they're really sturdy bits of kit. It's been a formula that's been around for a very long time, developed slightly over the years, but it just works. And these things are so, so potent. And even with a 7-car grid, as we're going to get now, we're still going to see great racing. You only need 2 cars for a really good race.
You are indeed correct. So yes, the car's making their way out on the circuit. Let's have a quick look at the grid then for race number 2 that's coming up. Stefano Lini is going to be starting on a pole position after his race win yesterday, and of course fastest up the race. James Winslow with a great result from him as well, starting in 2nd place. John Corbett, the man who started on pole position yesterday, starting from the 2nd row of the grid in 3rd place. Then it's Tony Bishop, who finished 3rd yesterday, but because it's on the fastest laps, he has been demoted down to 4th place. Dominic Paul in 5th, Shane Kelly in 6th place, and George Lyons rounding out the field of 7 cars after a crash yesterday where the back of that car certainly didn't look how it looks today, which is repaired and working. We spoke to their mechanics earlier on today, and they were happy with the car, and they were making sure that it was all working. But they're lining up on the grid now, as you can see with these pictures here from Silverstone, and a dry track slick tyres.
Yes, full potency will be achieved from these cars today out on the Pirellis. And to be fair, like you say there about the car in 7th place on the grid, Anthony, just amazing to see the car get repaired because they're very sensitive to damage, obviously. They're very aero-dependent, these cars. There's a big aero package on them. The front wings are huge. But then it's the fact that any little tap that you get, any contact with a wall, because of how tightly packed everything is in the back of these cars, all it takes is one little hit and it will just completely write off a gearbox, write off an engine. You know, it just takes one little hit to just knock a component out of place, and it's just a huge domino effect and a very expensive repair bill. But they got away with it, a really good repair job. I think we're in for a corker of a race.
I think we are indeed as well. Now, of course, they will have a warm-up lap that's coming up. Obviously, they've just left the dummy grid area onto the actual main grid themselves. They'll have one warm-up lap now to just get everything up to temperature, get those tyres up to temperature. And as we were speaking to some of the teams earlier today, you know, that we're saying that these tyres they do take quite a bit to get up into temperature, and of course with the temperature that we've got at the circuit today, it's quite cool in the air.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the track temperature's like, but yeah, compared to yesterday, and you can see there in the clouds, there are lots of dark clouds looming over the circuit. So it's 50-50 on what's going to happen today in terms of conditions out there. As you can see, 2020 champion from last year, Stefano Lini, making his way around the circuit. Great result from him yesterday, and I'm sure we'll see good things again from him today. But again, a very close race, I think we're going to achieve.
Yeah, definitely, and like you say about the tyres there, they do take quite a bit to get them up to temperature. They run quite aggressive camber on the front of Formula 3 cars, and despite the front wheels being a bit smaller, you'd expect them to go for a larger contact patch and try and use the most out of it because there's not much tyre there, but they still only use quite a minimal amount of contact patch on the inside of it, so you really do need to try and get the car leaning in and get it working. You wouldn't expect much body roll from something like a Formula 3 car with the suspension setup they have, but to be fair, you do get quite a bit of body movement, a bit of bounce sometimes. If you have the car set up soft, especially in wet conditions, you can really get some good contact with it. But I'm intrigued to see what Lini can do from the front of the grid. Obviously, he's got Winslow alongside him. But we also heard that John Corbett said that he doesn't reckon James's car's got the pace. So it's how he wrangles that thing around in the dry today.
It's all going to be down to what these drivers can do. Yesterday, soaking wet conditions. They couldn't really put the power down, but it's dry now. The gloves are off. We're going to really see what these cars can do. As you can see, their drivers lighting up those rear tyres to get as much temperature in as they can. And of course, this is what you would see in Formula 1. Again, in the lower divisions of Formula 3 as well. That, you know, they need to get these temperatures into the tyre. And oh yes,
he's doing it. Sorry,
is he doing his burnouts? Yeah. He was just doing the.
Yeah, there was a car right at the back doing a practice start there, but he caught me off guard. He'd stayed stationary for a long time, so I thought maybe he hadn't quite got it up to scratch and had a bit of an issue, but no, it's number 15 of George Lines.
Yes, it is. George Lines, the man who had his accident yesterday, and of course the hastily repaired car with heavy damage to the rear, and of course that gearbox is right at the back. But he has got it repaired, and we have got all 7 cars starting race number 2 of the weekend. Round 2. Race 1 was yesterday. Revs are up, green flag up at the back, and it is 3 lights. Lights out, and they are away, and it's a great start from the front row, and it looked like second place of James Winslow. Got a better start, but no, Stefano Lini holds on to that one, I believe, at the start, or has that?
No,
someone else?
Is
it Winslow got him? Is it Winslow? Already got into the lead there as they exit out of Copse Corner, down in towards the Maggots and Beckett section. Who's leading? Yes, it is Winslow, but Stefano Lini around the outside with a great lunge and gets the job done. He likes that move, doesn't he?
Oh, that was absolutely naughty stuff from Stefano Lini. Nice and late on the brakes. He knew the grip was out there. That's normally somewhere you'd go if it was wet. You know, you'd try and get all the grip from it, but Winslow just didn't have an answer for it. Lini still leads him now down into Brooklands for the first time. Going into Luffield, he's already starting to open up that gap. And behind Winslow now in 3rd position, I believe it's still John Corbett chasing him down right on the back of him now as they come back into sight here. We've still got the University of Wolverhampton car, Shane Kelly, at the back of the field. Actually, sorry, I say still. Actually, he's been overtaken by his teammate, hasn't he, George Lines, who did start 7th, but a very, very aggressive move from Stefano Lini. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah, well, at the end of lap 1 then, a very dramatic start. We've already seen 2 position changes for the lead already, but as you say, Stefano Lini leading the way then on your screen by James Winslow. John Corbett right on his tail there on your screen, the battle for second place. That's what we're going to be seeing here, and James Winslow almost pushing his student driver off the circuit there. John Corbett in the slipstream now, pulls out of the toe, switches to the outside now. Is he going to try and go the long way round? Gets past, no. There was no defensive driving there from James Winslow. Moves down to 3rd, because you've got to remember, it's not his car. It's an invitational drive for James Winslow, so he doesn't probably want to damage it too much.
No, that's true, and obviously we heard from John Corbett before. He said he doesn't have the pace. He obviously meant it doesn't have the pace in a straight line, because even with the slipstream, even when he pulled out of that toe, like you say, he was so capable and just flew back past him. At the back of the field, Shane Kelly's got back in front of George Lines for 6th place. Just ahead of them, they have got Dominic Paul in the number 8 machine, the Chris Dipman racing car, just up the road. Not too much of a gap between those guys. We just see them going around Copse now. Although, do we? I don't know if we had the number 15 at the back of the field behind them there. We'll have a look.
We did. So Dominic Paul there's just gone past. Then it's Shane Kelly, and then it's George Lines, who is just appearing now.
He's got an issue, front wings off.
Yeah, so he's had an issue there. So damage to the front of that number 15 car. He's not had the best weekend today, but of course only a front wing damage. I'm sure that's a quick fix for the team, hopefully, if it is just that, and there's no suspension damage either, because suspension damage was quite crucial for Stefano Lini yesterday when he crashed into the pit exit wall when leaving the pit lane in qualifying. So, yes, definitely not the right thing to do. But yes, a quick rundown then for you. Stefano leading the way by 2.2 seconds from John Corbett. Then it's James Winslow in third place, but obviously leading in class for the Invitational class, 4 seconds further down the road. Then it's Tony Bishop, great running from him at the moment in fourth place. Dominic Paul as well, he finished third, and into the pit lane comes that stricken number 15 George Lines. He needs to get that car sorted out. I'm not sure if it's going to be a quick nose change, because they do have replacement noses here. Yeah, it's just a quick couple of bolts. Here we go, back in you go. But here, battle on your screen of Dominic Paul and Shane Kelly. The battle for 5th place on screen at the moment with 11 minutes to go. We cut back to the front now, because what's going on a little further up here, it's James Winslow under pressure, I believe, from Tony Bishop. Yeah, Tony Bishop was closing in on him at the start of this lap, and now he's right with him once again. The gap was just over a second at the start of the last lap, or actually, no, less than that, 0.7 of a second. Now, it's visually a lot less than that. He's going to have a little bit of slipstream down the main straight here towards Copse. He's not going to get it done before then, but he's at least going to be right behind him. You can see there flashes of yellow on the front of both of these cars, so from the front, you've really got to know who you're looking at. I think number 4, James Wilmslow's gone really wide there. Maybe just letting him through, thinking, you know, it's not my bag, it's not my thing to fight with, because you're in this for a championship, I'm just an invitational to it. Well, you have to remember as well is that James is actually driving the man who's just overtaken him. Car. It's Tony's car that he's in. So I think Tony's was just like, yes, I don't want to battle with it too hard, because I don't want it to damage both of my cars in one go. So yeah, so he's probably thinking, if I'm nice to him, he might let me do it again. He might invite me back. Exactly. Just behind that as well, sorry, we had Dominic Paul and Shane Kelly right together. Shane Kelly had actually got in front of him on that previous lap, and he's now opened up the gap. They've just come back into our sight out of Luffield, and round Woodcote they go. And I'd say, I'm going to put a guess on this, it's about 1.4 seconds, that. Well, we'll see when they cross the line. But, of course, you know, the team was saying that he didn't have a great qualifying yesterday. Of course, he spun at the entrance of Brooklands, and, of course, that was a disaster for him. He couldn't set a competitive time. But now, of course, with the car hastily repaired, of course, from any slight little damages from a spin, and, you know, slick tyres on now, showing it's got the pace, and it is a quick car. So, you know, he's putting that time in, and he's closing that gap up. But you can see here the train of 3 cars just coming in of Tony Bishop, James Winslow, and just behind there is, of course, that's James Winslow in the 4. Tony Bishop is just the one in front now. He's started to open up that gap, like you say. He's just spreading them out a little bit. That was Shane Kelly in the number 11 just coming into Luffield. Once again, that gap getting bigger and bigger. I was wrong on the previous lap. It was 1.199 seconds. So there you go. Just about 1.2. I was a few tenths off, but I'm sure I can be forgiven. Get out. There we go. Just under 10 minutes to go then for round 2 of this 3-round weekend. And Stefano Lini once again leading the way on lap 6. He's clear now by 7.9 seconds. Not as much as how much he was clear by yesterday. He was clear by 15 seconds in the wet conditions. As you say, he was enjoying those wet conditions out there. But what we're seeing here is enjoying the dry conditions as well. So he's managing to open that gap up from John Corbett. And was that someone off in the background there, or was it, I think it was good? Maybe but just running wide as they came out of the Maggots and Beckett section there. Just come back onto the back straight. Easy to do. There's a lot of runoff out there now. It used to all be grass as you got over to the wall, but now it's all tasty runoff, so you can use it all. Second place, though, at the moment, Corbett, he's not getting away from Bishop here. Bishop's actually closer to him than Winslow is to Bishop now, so that's definitely evolving as time goes on. Still 8 3/4 minutes left of the race, so plenty of time to get the job done here for Tony Bishop if he wants to take second place. He'll be happy with the podium either way. And to be honest, it was John Corbett that we spoke to earlier. He said third would be great. And, you know, he's second at the moment, so even if he does go down to third, we know he'll still be happy with the result. Yeah, well, of course, he started on pole yesterday, finished his race in 6th place, so he was struggling with the wet conditions out there. But, of course, with it dry, the dry it's so much nicer to drive in dry conditions than wet conditions. I know a lot of drivers say it's a lot more fun, isn't it, to get out there and you enjoy the spray, bit of oversteer, kick of oversteer on that one. But, of course, I imagine in something like a front-wheel drive touring car, then yes. in a Formula 3 car, it's either gripping or it's not. Yes, it's either it's going well or it's going wrong. Yeah, going in the wall. But it happened for a couple of them, didn't it? But it doesn't look like we've had George Line re-exit the pit lane, so I suspect they've pulled that car in and retired it from the race, which is a huge shame because, you know, it happened yesterday. He's not managed to finish either races so far this weekend, so hopefully he can redeem himself in race 3. But we'll have to see that a little bit later on today. But 7.5 minutes to go, and this is a battle that's heating up. Tony Bishop on the hunt for John Corbett as they head down the back straight in towards Brooklands. So that gap visibly getting smaller. You can just see now it's just over a second now. 1.1 seconds is the gap, of course. With if it's Formula 1, they'd have the DRS, but they don't have DRS in this, do they? We're not that advanced in this championship, but it's still a very advanced set of cars that we've got out here.
Yeah.
They'll come across the start-finish line. What will be the gap as they cross the line? Because I suspect it's a little bit less now.
Oh,
well, it's exactly a second.
Yeah.
So he took another 10th out of him.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the whole DRS situation. I don't like having to manufacture overtaking. What we've got here in Formula 3 is natural overtaking, as we call it. You get natural slipstream. It's just physics. You can't ignore it. If you try and exaggerate that, then do you really need to? Anyway, we'll stay away from that before I get triggered. John Corbett, then, now will be properly watching his mirrors here with Tony Bishop behind him. I'm actually looking at the mirrors on some of these cars because, as sad as that sounds, I know that with the huge airbox that these Formula 3 cars have on the side of them, they usually have one mirror on the right-hand side which is really low, and the left mirror is on this humongous stalk and up really high. It looks very odd when you see it, but it makes perfect sense. Doesn't look like any of these cars have actually got that. I think that's one of the things they've done on the newer Formula 3 cars that Dallara make, the F317s in particular. There's a few of them out there, but they're different versions of the 317, so yeah, it depends on how they're used. I think, though, the number 11, which we actually had a good look round before, does have that configuration with the much higher left wing mirror on it, but that's probably a bit too long to elaborate about wing mirrors.
Different engine manufacturers in this one as well, of course. All of the chassis are the Dallara chassis, of course, from different years. You've got some cars from 2008, but some from 2011. Along those lines, but different manufacturers of engines. You've got Mercedes engines out there, you've got VW engines out there, you've got Honda powered engines out there, so you know there's a vast different class of engines, so you know seeing them all race together and fairly close as well, you know it's great to see. And with only 5 minutes left to go, that gap between John Corbett and Tony Bishop is still heating up. They whiz past our commentary box window. Over the start-finish line once again. What's the gap?
It's 1.1 seconds last time out, so it's actually gone up now. Corbett responding a little bit to Bishop. What you were saying there about engines is very intriguing because one of my most lasting memories of Formula 3 cars, watching them at Alton Park when I was a lot younger, is just the huge Volkswagen branding down the side of the airbox and on the nose. And I always thought, it seems very strange because Volkswagen is not normally something you'd see on an open wheel car or something like that, but it's great that there are so many different manufacturers of engines just in this series alone. I mean, we've got 7 cars, which wouldn't sound like a lot to many people, but there's like 4 or 5 different engine manufacturers in there, so it's great to have it. And at the end of the day, it still provides good racing. But this is the man of the moment right now, the number 66, John Corbett, really responding ahead of Tony Bishop. They're coming past us again here in the commentary box. What's the gap going to be this time? Well, it's now 1.3 seconds as they cross, so it's certainly a good response this by Corbett. Bishop will be pulling his hair out trying to get back with him.
Meanwhile, back at the front of the grid, Stefano Lini, your race leader, lap 12 now, and he's opened that gap up to 14.3 seconds, so he is going to try and repeat his progress of what he did yesterday with another 15 seconds lead as what he got yesterday in the time being. But just looking out the commentary box window now, and I'm seeing dark clouds looming over one side, but with only 4 minutes left, I don't think it's going to hit us before the checkered flag comes out. But I suspect for the next race and the next race later on today, it could be a different story of what's going to happen. But just under 4 minutes to go now. We look here at your race leader, Stefano Lini, who, like you say, had a disaster in qualifying, went out on the wet tyres, thought it was the wrong call. The track was drying all the way throughout, came into the pit lane, swapped over to slick tyres, and when he left the pit lane, it was fine in the pit lane, but he didn't anticipate the pit exit, and then just understeered and aquaplaned straight into the pit wall. And his frustration, he was very much not happy.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not a good day at the office really when you do that, but he's really showing them what a contrast it is from a silly mistake like that to what a dominant performance he can put out when he gets down to it. He's absolutely flying around here at the moment. Touching on the weather that you mentioned as well, there is a little bit from where we are here at Woodcote. You can look over at Luffield, there's a monstrous cloud, and you can see the fact that the rain is falling out of it. You can see it from distance. It's that bad. So hopefully it won't hit us in the next 3 minutes. Doesn't look like it, but you never know. It's English weather. It could do anything.
Back here with second place, John Corbett, 15 seconds adrift, obviously, from our race leader at the moment, but he's being ever closely towed in by Tony Bishop. The gap now is 1.6 seconds, so I say he's getting close in. He's opening it back up again. So John Corbett looking comfortable there in second place, really getting used to the car. And of course, John Corbett is new to the Formula 3 Championship. It's his first time appearing in the F3 Cup, but John is racing many things with aero and wins. He's racing radicals, LMP3s at Spa, LMP2s in the Asian Le Mans series, and of course he raced in the Dubai 24-hour and got a podium for good measure. A podium as well in the F3 Cup, I suspect, one to tick on the old resume.
Oh yeah, well he's certainly done a better job in motorsport than I have. There's a reason I'm a commentator. But still, it's a fantastic pedigree to have, and this is what I love about stuff like this. You can come to an event like a club race meeting, and you'll see drivers like this that have got such pedigree, such experience. And half the time, if you're not in with the paddock already, you won't even realise it. But, you know, you're speaking and mingling with these drivers that have just done so much in their careers, and they're just such interesting people to speak to. And then you see them go out on track and you realise why they've done that, because they can jump in a car, like you've said, it's his first season, and just put in an absolutely monstrous effort, and he's doing a really good job up in second place.
Yes, indeed. 90 seconds left then on the timer. We look a little further down at the field. This is, of course, Dominic Paul. He finished third yesterday in his race, currently in sixth at the moment. So struggling in the dry conditions compared to what he was having in the wet conditions. So I suspect maybe he's hoping for a little bit of a rain dance and a bit of a rain shower a little bit later on today. But a great performance from him at the moment there as he heads round Brooklands now in towards the Luffield section. Again, Luffield's probably my least favourite corner on the Silverstone National Track. It's a never-ending corner, isn't it?
It's very difficult. You've got to modulate the brakes and the throttle to make sure you keep the car equidistant from the apex all the way around it. Some people tend to drive it in quite early, take an early apex, let the car wash out wide, and then use it for a slingshot on the exit and get a really good run down towards Woodcote, as we see Stefano Lini doing right now. Takes a really long run, stays away from the curb early on as he goes through Woodcote, and then just hugs it slightly when he needs to, smooths out the car as much as possible to get optimum speed down the straight towards the wonderful and very exhilarating Copse Corner. I cannot wait for the first day I ever go around there. I've never driven this circuit before, and I cannot wait to do it. But you said you went round here in a Radical. That must have been fun.
That was a very fun experience, I have to say, doing that. Slight lock up there from Stefano Lini. Only 16 seconds left on the clock, so he doesn't need to be pushing that hard. But of course,
why not?
Are you ever going to tell a racing driver to slow down?
Exactly.
It's criminal to tell a racing driver to slow down, I suspect. But he heads down the back straight in towards Brooklands again. I think for the final time, are they going to see the last lap board, or is the checker flag coming out this time? I can never remember if they go for an extra lap or whether or not they get the checker flag this time. Well, we'll find out as he heads down.
Got a man with a checker flag,
right? And I can see a man with a checker flag. It is going to be another race win for Stefano Lini, across the line, clear by just under 16 seconds. That's 2 race wins on the tick, and of course looking very good for another championship win from last year. John Corbett, again, a newcomer to the season, taking a second place finish, but very close behind is Tony Bishop, who takes that third place spot in the number 21 as they cross the line there. James Winslow also crossing the line in fourth place. Great result from him, of course. James Winslow being multiple motorsport champion in many series across Asia and Australia and Europe as well, and racing many other F3 classes, but coming here, he's a very competitive driver, but in an invitational car, coming in fourth place, a very good running.
Yes, indeed.
Fifth place across the line, the number 11 of Sean Kelly. Great recovery from him as well. And again, who could Dominic Paul as well there in sixth place, and it was George Line. George Line in not finishing the race, so disaster for George Line, not managing to finish his first 2 races of the season. Yeah. I suspect he wants to get in on that winning race through.
Yeah, one of the main things as a driver is that you can bounce back from something like that. Something I've really admired about getting to know a lot of drivers in different series is just the way that they respond. There was a gentleman that I was commentating on just last weekend at Brands Hatch. He put it on pole halfway through their qualifying session, smacked it into the wall at Paddock Hill Bend, went straight on in the wet, horrible accident, damaged the car. He was fine. Came back the next day. He was eventually second on the grid because somebody beat him, and he put in an absolute monster of a drive with bent steering. And he was happy with it. You know, he got a podium, and it was a really good response to it. And that's one of the main things as a driver. You've got to always take the rough with the smooth, basically. And if you can bounce back from those moments that really do kick you in the teeth, that's what makes a good driver, really.
Yeah, I think you are definitely correct in saying that. Well, hopefully in a moment we'll head down to the pit lane and have a quick chat with our race winner from that one. But until that sort of time, of course, we can kind of reflect on what happened, of course, in that race. I mean, at the start was quite interesting, of course.
Yeah.
Now, Stefano Lini's overtake in towards the Magnus Beckett section. That was something that I thought it was going to go incredibly wrong, but it stuck, and he managed to hold it.
Yeah, it's a very, very scary corner to go into at the best of times, especially in the wet like they would have been yesterday. Winslow, obviously, really good start off the line. That's what he needed to do, because we heard that his car didn't have the pace. Even other drivers knew that it didn't really have the pace. But then Stefano Lini went, you know what, mate, watch this. Really late on the brakes, round the outside. He knew the grip was there and he could get a good slingshot onto the back straight. It was beautifully judged, and from there, nobody could touch him at all. It was a real shame to lose the number 8 of the... Sorry, it wasn't the number 8, it was George Lyons, wasn't it, we lost early on. Real shame to lose him from that. Not sure whether the contact was with his teammate, though, because that's who he was battling just beforehand when that wing came off. Whether it was just an innocent bolt failing or something like that, you don't know. But still, shows you once again that even with a 7-car grid, you can still have plenty going on.
No, exactly that. And of course, what we saw earlier on as well in qualifying and race 1 and the wet conditions as well, you know, drivers are having a real mixture of what they can do in terms of, you know, just performance out on circuit, what they can do in terms of their personal skill levels. And of course, they've had a wet race, they've had a dry race now. What is going on in the second race? So, well, in the third race, I should say, a little bit later on today. What is it going to be? Is it going to be dry? Is it going to be wet? Let us know as well on the stream, of course. Get your comments in. We can't see your comments, unfortunately, in the commentary box, but do get your comments in. Let us know your predictions. Is it going to be raining, or is it going to be a dry race later on today? What time is the race later on today?
The next race later on today, it was actually, well, this one was planned to be at 11:35, and it's now 11:33, and we've finished. So the next race later on today is planned to be at about 4 o'clock, but just keep your eye on Alpha Live, and of course, we'll be going live earlier if needs be, because to be fair, everyone's doing a smashing job here this weekend, and we're ahead of schedule. It's awesome.
We are, yes. It's a very unusual for a race weekend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, usually we'd like to speak to our race winner, of course, at this time, and that is what you're expecting. Unfortunately, I don't think Stefano Lini got the memo of trying to stop, but Bryn's our man, is out there quite literally chasing after him in the pit lane behind it. It's quite a spectacle. So hopefully we will try and get that interview with you in just a moment, because it would be nice to hear what he's got to say after that race, because of course, you know, with just the...
I don't know, right pace, wasn't it? It was just it was Sunday drive for him, quite literally. You know, he had to still work for it at the start, which is what made it interesting for him. But he just showed everybody what he can do with that car, and it's drivers like him. You know, I'm not 100% sure on his background with Stefano Lini, but obviously he is really, really potent all the way through. Every single lap, he's just on it, really on it all the time, and it's just great to watch.
Yes, he is, of course, racing for CF Racing, of course. His debut season was 2019 is when he first joined the season, so he's quite a newcomer in terms of racing in cars. But, it's quite an interesting side to that one. In his 2019 season as well, his debut season, he did get 6 wins, finished 4th in the championship. So, you know, straight away from the first season, you know, his first year in the car, you know, and he put in a stellar performance like that. And then, of course, in 2020, he then won the championship, but only by 13 points. That was the kind of key thing. So it was still an incredibly close championship. Of course, for that driver. But of course,
and to be fair, what makes that even closer is you get 30 points for a win in the championship as well. So even if you only win it by 13, all you'd have to do is finish about 8th or 9th.
Yeah.
So even if you had a grid that big,
so
you can close that gap even if somebody's had an off or something like that, or a DNF. You know, it's very easy to then rebuild up that gap.
Of course. So, interesting stuff from that one. Well, of course, the end of the Formula 3 race, the dark clouds looming as well over the circuit. You can, like you say, you physically see it raining.
You can just see a streak below the clouds ahead of us here. We can't see them on stream at the moment, unfortunately, but honestly, just take our word for it. English weather is the best way to describe it. You can just see a dark patch just below the cloud, a direct line downwards. So if that doesn't hit us today, I think we'll be very lucky, maybe somewhat disappointed though, because it'll really spice things up, won't it?
I suspect it will spice things up a bit. You get to see the dramatic spray coming out of the top of the
rooster tail.
Yes, yeah, the good old rooster tail. We do love that, don't we? A bit difficult for the cars behind, I suspect, because they can't really see much that's going on. But yeah, I think from a driving point of view, it's a lot more fun in the wet, I suspect. But a bit more petrifying.
Yeah, it's a lot more tricky, but you see a different bag of talent in the wet. That's the thing. You get drivers that really do specialise in wet conditions, and you just get these performances from people that, not that you don't expect them, but you just get these certain people that it's like they've got webbed feet. They just completely drive beyond anything that anyone else can do in the field, and it's always something that we love to see because it throws up a surprise for us. It can mix up the championship order as well after that meeting where it has rained. And to be fair, I suppose it's a bit of a message to some other drivers to up their game a bit in the wet, isn't it, really?
Well, yeah, indeed so. And of course, James Winslow, we've spoken to him, of course, spoken about him quite a bit in this one, but his starts are like no other. He can get that F3 car off the line. So,
to be fair, you told me about that this morning as well. You said, watch out for James when he gets going, because he will do it, and you weren't lying at all. But someone that we do have waiting for us now is our wonderful Bryn Lucas, who is down in the pit lane, I believe, with Stefano Lini.
Yeah, thanks very much there, gents. I am here with Stefano, and that was really, you made it look a bit too easy. I think it was 5 seconds you led by, but as we were walking here, you said that you were trying to get that 50 or below 50-second lap.
Yeah, I want to get the 49s. That's the goal for me. I thought James would have made it a bit more difficult for me at the start. Again, had a very good start, as I thought he would. It's not the easiest circuit to overtake on, you see, because you've only really got Luffield and Brooklands, but I managed to get the run on him out of Copse, and again, do what I did last time, went on the outside of him, going into Maggots, actually. It was a bit of a ballsy move. I thought I might end up having contact, but he was fair, he kept his line, and I managed to get him on the exit. And yeah, it was just head down from there on. The tyres were fresh because we haven't used the slicks yet, so yeah, it was good. Car felt good.
And actually, he disappeared backwards, and behind you, 16.5 seconds behind you, you had a bit of a battle between Bishop and also Corbett too. So those two were getting on with it. You just got to sail off away. So really, for you, that was more of a qualifying fastest lap exercise, really.
In a way, yeah. It was a shame some of the other guys didn't have much of the RI pace, but yeah, we did a lot of testing time over at Anglesey about 6-7 weeks ago, and really got the car dialed in. So we all feel comfortable with the car. The team have done a great job. They know what they're doing, and we just want to improve every time we go out. So I doubt it's going to be dry for the next race at 4 o'clock, but the clouds are coming in thick and fast. So.
Yeah, we were actually talking about this before the race, just before it kicked off, and actually looking up at the sky, the clouds have really started to build here. And for you, going into the second race of the day, having a really nice race out on slicks and then having to dial your mind back into a wet setup as well, how easy is that for you guys?
It can be difficult because sometimes you want to take Copse flat and then you end up off. So you've got to recalibrate yourself. That's the good thing about having a green flag lap, is that you get to know the conditions again. You see where the grip is, you know your boundaries, and it's just about eking out every lap, see how quick you can go. But I'd rather it either bone dry or completely wet. I don't like this in between. It's a very difficult circuit because the traction's so high on the circuit. When it's damp, it ruins the wet tyres, and it's not quite there for the slicks. So that's the worst conditions for any driver. So hopefully we have either as it is now or a fully wet track.
Yeah, it's always horrible. No inter setup, no way of having an intermediate tyre that does quite well in a bit of a damp conditions. But hopefully for you later on, it will work quite nicely with a decent wet setup. Who, when you're looking at that grid just there, I mean, there's only a 7-car grid at the moment. I know there's been engine trouble from Germany, but who are you looking at there as your main competition?
John's improving. He started last year, and he's getting better and better every round. So is Tony. Shane was out last year, so he's getting to know his car again with his students. There are a couple of other people that are out through various engines not being ready or injuries and so on, so hopefully we'll get a few new fresh blood back in the championship, and everyone's going to get better and better. So some of the circuits that we've got as well are quite short, hard to overtake. That always makes for good racing. So
it's fantastic to see the cars out, and well done for your efforts so far today.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff there to Stefano, winning this one, Stefano Lini winning this one here, as he does so often when it comes to this F3 Cup and the racing out on track. Brilliant performance from him, winning by some 16.5 seconds.